Obesity is a problem, but the nanny state and taxes are not the answers. I'm Brian Lilley with the Rebel.media. Look, there's no doubt that obesity is a problem. Too many Canadians are overweight. Too many are outright obese, including children. But the latest report from the Senate calling for taxes and bans, that's not the way to go, no matter what the activists the senator spoke to claim. Now, before I get into the bad, let me say where I agree with this Senate report, because it isn't all bad. They have some recommendations I like, and some I don't. So what do I like? Well, they call for making nutritional information easier to read and easier to understand. The report says standardize and expand nutritional information on food packaging to make it easier to understand. Okay, I'm good with that. We already require prepared food products to be labeled so we know what's in them. We need to know the ingredients, we need to know potential allergens, so why not put out more nutritional information and make that information easier to understand? If you believe in the concept of buyer beware, caveat emptor, well, that requires the buyer to have a clue about what they're buying. The report also calls for government to do more to let people know about the follies of a processed food diet. It says increase awareness of the potential harms of processed foods and the benefits of fresh, whole foods. Look, processed foods are not good for you, especially not in large amounts. But between a ban and education, I'll accept education every time. Not enough people have a clue about what they're putting in their bodies. Speaking of which, the report also says, overhaul Canada's dated food guide. I'd agree. There's too much emphasis right now on breads and grains. I'm not a no-carb guy, but the food guide is a little too weighted in that direction. So that's the good side of this report and the recommendations. What about the bad? Well, the report calls for another tax grab. It reads, consider a tax on sugar and artificially sweetened drinks. The report actually points to taxes in some jurisdictions of 29% and more to reduce consumption. I don't drink much pop, I simply don't. But I also know that some artificially sweetened drinks, some of the ones I've bought for my kids, they're lower in overall sugar content and calories than some apparently natural and healthy juices. But one will be taxed, one will not under these recommendations. The so-called healthy drink has more overall sugar, more calories. It won't be taxed. How does that make sense? In addition, the evidence that this type of program works in the long term, it's inconclusive at best. One study by Britain's Institute of Economic Affairs found that taxing these things doesn't work. It reads, the demand for sugary drinks, snacks, and fatty foods is inelastic. Evidence demonstrates most people will not change their food shopping habits unless prices change dramatically. In fact, it found that rather than stopping drinking sugary beverages, consumers change their behavior. It reads, consumers tend to switch from taxed sugary drinks to other high-calorie drinks, such as fruit juice, milk, or alcohol. Taxing food will have limited effect at best, and it may simply change behavior but not reach the desired result. What else does this study call for? Another Liberal favorite, a ban. It says ban the advertising of food and beverages to children. Quebec already has bans on advertising food at children. Now, while Quebec has lower obesity rates than neighboring Ontario, which doesn't have a ban, it is higher by about the same margin when compared to British Columbia, which doesn't have a ban. Banning advertising at children also doesn't make them media savvy, doesn't it? Look, when I was a kid, we wanted sugar smacks because we saw them on Saturday morning cartoons. Guess what? My mother said no, a hard no, so we didn't get them. My own kids, they see advertising messages everywhere. Guess what? They don't get everything they ask for. They also learn how to deal with advertising, which is not going away, and they learn how to eat a healthy diet. Finally, this report, it falls for a fallacy that persists for reasons I simply can't understand. That fallacy? That poor people eat bad diets because they can't afford healthy food. Honestly, when discussing the issue of income, the report actually says, this is not a product of collective loss of willpower. Low-income Canadians, for example, often rely on unhealthy foods because these items are cheaper and sometimes all that is available. I don't believe that for a minute. Let me address this from experience. I've lived on a low income. I've had to feed a family on a low income. Don't believe me? How about being the sole breadwinner with 4 young kids at home and an income of just over $40,000 a year, where the average family income is nearly double that? We didn't buy unhealthy processed foods because they were more expensive. Look, a bag of chips was a luxury, and it would cost about $2.99 or more, and that would serve as a snack, but a 10-pound bag of potatoes would cost the same and last several full meals and provide much more food and better nutrition. A box of chicken nuggets, well, that would cost about as much as a whole chicken and not stretch as far. A whole chicken, well, that could be supper, a couple of sandwiches, or for lunch, provide the basis for a pot of soup. I could go on with more examples. Now, I don't know who this idea that unhealthy food is, why they perpetuate it. Unless you shop at Whole Foods and only buy high-end organic food, fresh food that you prepare yourself is going to be cheaper and healthier than anything processed. Maybe people don't learn how to do that anymore. Maybe too many parents don't teach their kids to cook. Maybe people are pressed for time, or maybe it's convenience. But by any realistic mark, it's not cost. It's not that unhealthy processed foods are cheaper. My only sense is that this is an idea pushed by backers of higher taxes on foods they don't like. Look, my bottom line, give people more information. Educate them a little if you must, but the bans, the taxes, and the nanny state attitude, they're not going to solve this obesity problem.